Hey there, it's Penelope in London, and if you haven't been to my channel before, please subscribe. I'm sharing, on top of dealing with traumas, CPTSD, I'm also look at astrology, symbolism to help people to evolve the current life circumstances. Astrology is a very powerful tool, but this video is going to touch on some information to do with trauma and how we evolve our traumas so that we get to live a life, that's more aligned with our authentic selves. So I'm going to the first slide. This is a little bit from a book called Alice Miller. And Alice Miller said that we were compelled to gratify our parents' unconscious needs at the cost of our own self-realization. We need to experience the rebellion and the mourning aroused by the fact that our parents were not available to fulfill our primary needs. And in truth, I mean, this statement that Alice Miller makes really, sort of also lines up with patriarchy and the truth of society right now. In astrology, father would be, or not father so much, but Saturn would be to do with rules and regulations, and the 10th house, the public image, and the 4th house would be our childhood, and the depth of us, our early ego, and the ability to say our first no. So you might recall as a child, when you said no or you wanted something, that it was your needs were not met or were not fulfilled. And of course, some of us, wouldn't look at our childhoods as being anything, bad. Some of us have had decent childhoods, but some of us have had some heinous treatment in childhood, whether it be through parenting or through school or, just generally meeting people through life. So we have to decide for ourselves where we're at in our healing, on our healing journey. And if we look at the idea that, that if we continually try and gratify other people's needs, and this moves into adulthood, like where we get codependent because we don't want to be abandoned. So what we'll do is we'll carry those traits of our needs not being met and fawning as a child. Fawning, Pete Walker would refer to it as the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So fawn is where we're extra nice to somebody who's not meeting our needs in order to get our needs met. And that would be natural for a child to do that. If a child was very scared or they weren't being fed properly or they weren't being cared for, the only way they would have been able to get the attention would be to, be extra nice to a parent. So a lot of us have had tricky childhoods, and we need to deal with the early wounding and pain so that we can begin to reparent ourselves and become a parent to our inner child, so that we can live more in alignment with who we really are and protect ourselves as well. So the next slide, this is from a book called Trauma and the Soul that I'd like to read about disassociation. And disassociation is anything that we do generally because we have some form of pain. And Gabor Mate, you can check him out on YouTube. He talks about addictions as an example. Addictions would be, he would say, it's not why the pain, it's not why the addiction. This is what he said. It's not why the addiction, it's why the pain. So if we think about any addictions that people have in general, then we're really addicted because we're in pain. So that can be, we can be addicted to unhealthy relationships. We can be addicted to alcohol, cigarettes, food, porn, the list goes on. So we have to, again, look at and objectify our lives and look where we are disassociating. And generally when we do that is because we don't want to feel the pain of the early wounding. I know myself, I stopped using alcohol in 2012. And I was self-medicating because I was in a lot of trauma and pain. I was very successful running a business, employing people in a service industry business up until 2017. And my life really began to fall to bits when I stopped drinking because I was no longer using something that was numbing the pain. And as I moved through the years following stopping drinking, the pain body really played up and it came out of me, the pain came out. But after 2 years of psychoanalysis now, I'm in a much better place. So I'm going to read this about disassociation. Disassociation effectively obliterates, at least temporarily, the existence of that self to whom the trauma could occur. And it is in that sense like a quasi-death. The rebuilding of the linkages, the re-entry into life involves pain, not unlike that of mourning. The return of life means the recognition and the facing of death, not simply the death of one's early objects as real people, but the death of those aspects of self with which those objects have been united. The pain accompanying the grief is extreme, among the most painful of life's experiences. We make this assumption because of the enormous psychological price that is paid to continue to avoid it. So yes, so I can relate to this, because when I stopped drinking, the pain was so intense, because it been so squashed down by running a business, you know, appearing to be successful, and, you know, the egoic states of that we're okay, and society not allowing us to really grieve and feel our pain. A lot of people who've been through, you know, sexual abuse, I've seen this in spiritual groups on social media, you know, and I had my say about that at the time, which was very good that I got to a level of speaking up. Is the fact that people will say things like, oh, let it go, oh, forgive them, they're your parents. You know, when people keep seeing repeating themes in society, people who've been through violence or sexual abuse or, you know, trafficking, when we see this stuff replayed on the news, like of late, the Epstein case, the guy in Hollywood a few years ago, the Catholic Church, when we keep seeing these, they re-trigger our own memories if we've been through similar circumstances. So I would absolutely say to people that have been through and dealing with trauma, healing is not the be-all and end-all of healing. The ultimate thing in healing is getting to feel what we feel inside our hearts about what we went through, and we don't have to like people or try and fix relationships that are very toxic and warped from childhood. And once we begin to get, you know, healthy anger and grieve the original wounding and pain, and that can take years, you know, a couple of years, then what we can do is that we begin to soften inside ourselves, because we're bonding with our own inner child and giving that child the recognition and worth that it never had as a child. So when we allow ourselves to grieve and have tears, and we don't punish ourselves, we're actually doing ourselves a huge, huge favor. We're really helping ourselves heal. So I want to show you this piece here I just read on disassociation. Came from this book, Trauma and the Soul. It's not a cheap book on Amazon, but it's one of the most profound books that I've read on trauma, and extremely beautiful. I'm very pleased I bought this. A gentleman who's got a channel that reads Carl Jung, a guy called Skip, he told me about this book, and I'm really pleased that I purchased it. So again, Trauma and the Soul, the guy is a Jungian, Jung therapist. So you know what you're dealing with if you buy this book. Beautiful book. And here, this is from Marie-Louise von France, and this is also based on her relationship or knowing Carl Gustav Jung. And she says, following your own star means isolation, not knowing where to go, having to find out a completely new way for yourself, instead of just going on the trodden path. Everybody else runs along. That's why there's always been a tendency in humans to project the uniqueness and the greatness of their own inner self onto other personalities and become the servants, the devoted servants, admirers and imitators of outer personalities. It is much easier to admire a great personality and become a pupil or a follower or a guru or a religious prophet or an admirer of a big official personality. That is much easier than following your own star. So, you know, the message there is follow your own star, whatever that is. You know, we're getting to our authentic selves at this point in our own evolution. And this is also the part of Jung's work as well, the hero's journey. Actually, I can't remember the guy's name, but I'll think of something in a moment, maybe. But the hero's journey and the known into the unknown. So, you know, we start life, that we have a call to adventure. You know, we get to our 20s and whatever, and we feel like we're supernatural and we're going to build a business and we're going to conquer the world. And then the threshold is the guardians. And then we begin to have transformation. You know, generally that can happen at a point, any point in life. We have a helper or a mentor. This can happen several times in life. I think this journey in, you know, but the full journey for me really hit when I was, you know, I'd say in the last few years when I had my Chiron return. So we have challenges and temptations. You know, we have our mentor and helpers. You know, I did in my early 20s, and then we have the helper. And then at some point we hit the abyss and we have death and rebirth. We have a revelation, which I did, you know, that I realized that what I seek is not outside myself. There's transformation, and then atonement, you know, whatever that means to you, you know, aligning with self. That's how I would see atonement. And then we return to ourselves, you know, the gift, which is you know, for me, being so tragically wounded in childhood, you know, now my gift is that I'm able to help others along this journey and more. And then, you know, so this is the hero's journey. And then we're here to be a bridge for others. I'm a bridge, you know, I'm not solved as well. I'm still on the bridge and I go backwards and forwards on the bridge, but I help people with astrology, and I also help with my wisdom and knowledge through various social media and writing. So know that you're a bridge to others and that your story matters, that you don't need to be, you know, get rid of shame, absolutely, shame and guilt about your childhood wounding and feeling that you can't express yourself. Get rid of that guilt and shame and begin to come out into this world, you know, and this is when we stop disassociating, when we begin to be open, and also in our vulnerability, knowing that in vulnerability that we're in a powerful situation. Simon Forster said this to me. He's Raising Vibrations, you can check out on YouTube, but I had a meeting with him and he explained this to me deeply. He said, because I was upset at the time that I'd, you know, felt vulnerable, or I couldn't be vulnerable with a particular person. And he said to me, the idea is that if you know you're going to be vulnerable, like, so let's say, you know, I had a meeting with somebody today, or I wanted to speak to a friend and I needed to be vulnerable or let them know something. So two things are going to happen in my vulnerability with the person. The first thing is that I could be vulnerable with them and they will understand me, they will nurture me, and they will get it. And the second thing that could happen is that they could think I'm an idiot, they could think I'm an asshole, and they could tell me that, you know, what I think is a load of rubbish and that I don't matter. So if we know that we're going into our vulnerability with another and that we are going to be vulnerable and there's the possibility of two things happening, then it's a win-win situation. We're not going to lose. You know, we might still feel things, but knowing this will stop us, you know, just going along with things and fawning, and we'll begin to stand more into our authentic selves and be able to speak up. I hope this makes sense. And if you need help with that, you know, book a session with me if you've got issues like this. I would say as well, this is beautiful. This is Nin, and if that's how I pronounce it. But my mission, should I choose to accept it, is to find peace with exactly who and what I am, to take pride in my thoughts, my appearance, my talents, my flaws, and to stop the incessant worrying that I can't be loved as I am. So when we begin to love ourselves as we are, then others naturally will also love us as we are. And the people that don't, they're just not our people. So we don't need to worry about upsetting anyone. The next slide here, I want to add, you know, if you want to stop this, this is my booking, but this is a disclaimer. I am not a medical practitioner, so I don't diagnose any issues. I'm here to just, you know, assist and help people through my astrology and my wisdom and knowledge. And then imagery is really important. You know, this is, you know, the cycle of life, you know, the planet Earth, we're on a ball, it's a circle. So there's a lot of beauty in this picture. You know, there's water washing away what needs to be washed away, and there's freshness here. So we can evolve, you know, we can come full circle, and it's the hero's journey as well. Hey, I never thought of that, the circle. And that's it for today, and I'll be back with more. And if you know, do subscribe if you haven't watched me before, because I've got more coming up. Thanks for watching. Thank you.